You're watching Every Day's a Saturday, USCC veteran. Let's go, baby. And here's your host, Brian. What's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for joining me on another great day, another great interview. I'm excited for my next guest. We get to hear about some great experiences that I've always been intrigued about, and that's that submarine life. You know, you kind of always wonder how it is to live on a submarine. They look intriguing and stuff, but I'm sure it's not as fun to live on them. They're super tight quarters. I think I'd probably flip out. Um, I've been on a Navy ship, and I thought sleeping on their little coffin racks was tight. I can't imagine what it is on a submarine. But before we get there, if you guys having a rough time out there and you're struggling, remember there's always 988 veterans. You press 1, and it'll put you in touch with someone who hopefully can help you out with what you're going through, maybe point you in the right direction and get you some resources. If not, there's always people like myself out there. You can definitely email me. Emails right below. Every day's a Saturday, 365 at yahoo.com. But let's not make our guest wait any longer. He is a retired Navy lieutenant commander, author of now 3 books, and here to talk all about his story is Matthew DiGeronimo. Hey, what's going on, Matt? How you doing, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Love the intro there.
Hey, thank you so much for joining, and appreciate you taking the time to come on, man, and talk about all the great things, like where you grew up, what made you decide to join the Navy, and we kind of get to hear, a great, a transition from enlisted and going into being an officer.
Mm-hmm.
And then also talk about your submarine life, and then what life has been like after getting out, and how that transition worked for you, and what kind of things you got going on now. And we'll talk more about your books as well.
Sure.
But the floor is all yours, Matt.
Cool. I think my story, like a lot of people who spent some time in the military, like it's funny to me. Like I kind of assumed in the military I'd be surrounded by a bunch of people who like knew what they wanted to do and became a Marine or went into the Navy. And really, the reality is much different than that. Everyone has like this story that they kind of end up there and then they like it and then they stay. So that's similar to me. I was a kid without a compass. I did well in school, especially in math and science, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't. Everyone was talking about engineering to me. Well, I didn't have any engineers in my family. I didn't have any engineers that were friends of the family. Like I didn't know what the hell an engineer did. So I was like, why would I go to school and do a bunch more math? And I don't even know what the hell I'd be doing. And quite frankly, I was having some mental health problems as well. Like I just wasn't ready to be an adult yet. And I was making some bad decisions, and luckily I kind of got ahead of it and just said, I need some discipline in my life. Like I need to get, I grew up in New Jersey, big Yankee fan. And that may not win me any favors with your audience here, but I am.
Well, yeah, not to consider. I'm a big Dodgers fan. So
all right, well, we'll see you in November, because I think that's what it's going to.
Oh man, it's looking good, but San Diego's looking pretty tough right now as well. So, and I think they're give us a run for our money. But I do see the Yankees are just cracking it with those torpedo.
I know. I wonder if.
But anyways,
yeah, we digress.
Yeah.
So I grew up playing sports, and I think that was actually a part of it. Like when that gets taken away from you, like I played 3 sports, and that every day I was involved in something. And when you graduate high school and that's gone, I think that played into it. And anyway, I just wanted to get out of New Jersey and do something wild. I went to the Peace Corps office, I went to the Marine Corps office, I went to the Navy recruiter, and I kind of latched on to the Navy because of the submarine thing. It just kind of matched my personality. I'm a little bit of an introvert, especially more so back then. The smaller crew size appealed to me. the necessary math and science skills to be what we call a nuke on a submarine. So not about half the crew is what's called a nuke, right? So you have about half the crew that goes through a pretty robust, I would say harder than college, quite frankly. It's shorter, but it's much more challenging than college ever was. It's for me, I went through an electronics technician school and then nuclear power school. So it was about a year of training, but that's 8 to 9 hours of classroom, 4 to 5 hours of homework every night, no exceptions. And I think my graduation rate in my class was like 30%.
Wow.
It's no and
People didn't like doing that practical stuff, huh, man? That's where it probably got a lot of people.
yeah, it just it's tough. It's tough to get through.
Yeah.
But I like that. And honestly, like it, being in the military just kind of woke me up. Like day one of boot camp, all my mental health issues just kind of went away. Like I just it was like a magic
Your
pill.
focus
And
was on something else at this point in time.
100%. And
Right.
and even at when I got out of boot camp, I wasn't making bad decisions anymore. My off time, like I became like a poster boy for the military. Like I was a rule follower, and I was really serious about doing my best. And I ended up being the what we call the honorman out of power school. So I graduated first in that class,
Dang.
um, and I went out to be an electronics technician where on a submarine, that those are the folks who also qualified to be what's called a reactor operator. So I was learning how to control the reactor at sea, um, and also do maintenance on like nuclear instrumentation and that type of stuff that keeps the reactor safe. So pretty high stakes stuff, but just
Wow.
regular guys, just like anywhere else. It was I really liked the camaraderie, I liked the discipline, I liked the intensity of the lifestyle. There wasn't really not much room for anything else in your life. And at that point in my life, I was fine with that. Um, it was well, I'll get into the let me get to the through becoming commissioned, and then we'll talk a little bit about life on a submarine.
Right.
So, and I was kind of doing well. The Navy said, "Hey, we'll send you to school if you come back as an officer." So I took that deal.
How many years are you in at this point in time?
3 years.
3 years, okay. Yeah, but I mean, what do you mean, like E3, E4 at this rate?
I was an E5 actually.
E5, damn.
Yeah.
Shit, you fast tracked pretty quick because I know in the
Yeah, I think
Navy.
I was an E3 at a boot camp because I won some award. I forget what it was, and then
So yeah, yeah.
nuke school automatically gives you E4, and then I
Oh,
passed the
damn.
test on the first round. Um,
Shoot.
but I was over my skis. I wasn't ready to be a second class petty officer, but on paper I was, I suppose. Um, anyway, so then I went to a school called Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, or RPI. It's an engineering school in upstate New York, and I fast tracked the degree in nuclear engineering in 2 years. Well, a lot of the work I was able to test out of because of what was taught to me in the Navy, and then came right back as an officer, and went on the USS Hampton for my first overseas deployment. And that's kind of where I really learned the life of. I mean, I had been obviously at sea as a tech, but I hadn't been on an extended deployment yet. And my first deployment was a 6-month deployment, and just some of the interesting little tidbits of submarine life that those who are listening may want to hear is. So I showed up on the submarine, like, I don't know, like a week before we deployed. So everyone is just scrambling to get their lives in order, get the submarine in order. So I had no one talking to me. No, I was just
There's a
like,
lot of pre-type stuff that you got to do before you get ready to deploy 6 months.
yeah. And
Yeah.
my onboarding was damn near zero. Like nobody was talking to me. I don't even think they
Right.
really knew who I was. I got the worst rack on the submarine. It was a rack that was on the curve of the
Oh,
hull
shit.
with a bunch of ventilation piping there up on the third tier, and you had to do a full pull up and then lift your legs up in the air and then swing yourself in, and the only way I could get in was on my back, And once I was on my back, I could not move to my side, certainly not my stomach. So you had to, like, if you wanted a book, or at the time I had a CD player, you had to like pre-stage that, because once you were laying down, you could not move to get it.
Damn.
And it was also right where we have a 3-inch launcher, which is kind of like a mini torpedo. And it shared a hull with the 3-inch launcher. So anytime they shot that, I damn near had a heart attack. And then there's, no, that jolt that you have in your sleep would just give me a big bump on my head because there's nowhere to jolt. So that was like, and then your stuff, everyone, once you get to be a senior officer or a chief, you get a little bit more room. But for most of the crew, and at this point in my career, it's just your rack lifts up. So underneath the rack, you have about a 3 to 4 inch of depth. And
Your
then
foot locker.
all your crap is no locker, and then all your crap just lays out in there. And then to make it even more
Tray.
interesting, there's not enough room on a fast attack submarine to store the food that is necessary in the storage. So they put all the canned stuff on the floor.
Mm.
So they line the floors with all the canned food. So clearance on a submarine is just about 6 feet, which is my height. So I kind of know that I'm okay to walk most places upright. But now you take another 8 inches off of that for all the canned food. So in the beginning of deployment, everyone's stooped over as you're walking on your food.
Oh my God.
In my living space on that deployment, it was like canned peaches and other canned fruit. So we used to tell the cooks, like, hey, more canned fruit. We were trying to eat our way out of some space in our living quarters.
I gotta imagine the bang your head rate is pretty high in there.
And there's nothing soft on a submarine, right?
Oh no, dude, that's still. Oh gosh, dang. I've been on a
Yeah.
ship and I understand that part, but my buddy actually got stitches from running into one of the dang doorways and stuff because it was too short. And he came up to like right and hit his head.
It's funny. I got stitches, and my story is an interesting one. I was a pretty senior guy at this point. I was the engineer of a submarine, so I was in charge of the engineering department. And I happened to be the ship studio officer that day, and I was eating dinner in the wardroom, and somebody called away a fire in the engine room. So I ran back, obviously, to see what was going on, and I've crossed the tunnel. We call it the tunnel, which gets you into the engine room. I've probably gone through that door, I don't know, 5,000-10,000 times. Well, I whacked my head on it. I came through it, and as I came up, I kind of hit my head on it, and I ended up with stitches on my head. It's funny what adrenaline does to you, right? Like, yeah, and I think this could segue into why we train as much as we do in the military, but because when your adrenaline is on, your body just goes into a different place.
Sure. Right. Yep.
Anyway, and then on a submarine, as an officer, everybody qualifies in the engine room first. So the first a good year, you're really just an engine room guy. And that was on my deployment. So I didn't even know the wardroom, and I ended up knowing the crew running the engine room. That was my family for 6 months, right? So I was on a 3-section rotation, 6 hours on, 12 off for close to 180 days. And that's where I learned some pretty tough leadership lessons, right? Like, so no one ever really pulled me aside and taught me some of this stuff, but I was learning it the hard way. When you're that isolated and you're that far away from home, and I hate to say it, but they say boys will be boys, or whatever the expression is. Like, guys are gonna fuck around, I guess is a better
for
way to
sure.
say it. Excuse my language.
Yeah. Oh no, this is not a baby show.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
And it took me a while to realize, like, hey, they're paying you to be a leader back there, and you can be friendly with people and not be their friend. There is a difference, and later I used to tell junior officers, like, first off, if you really need a friend that bad, get a dog, because you're not going to have one on the submarine. If you're going to be a leader, you're going to have
Right.
you're going to have people that you're friendly with and people that you'll be in contact for the rest of your life with and people that you would do anything for, but they don't need another friend. They got
Right.
plenty
No.
of friends.
Yeah.
So if you're becoming one of the guys back there, that's on you. You're the one who needs the friend. You're the one who's being selfish. And quite frankly, I was. I was lonely. I didn't have anyone to talk to, and I became one of the guys. And I thought I was a rock star back there because they all loved me. But there was a couple of things that happened where I realized like I don't have any control over this situation.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, like I'm being paid. I'm not turning wrenches. I'm not fixing electronics. So what am I being paid to do? I'm being paid to maintain standards and, when, and this may seem like a little bit over the top, but I believe it when the parents of the E3s sleep at night, they sleep well because they assume their son is being taken care of, and at some point in my career, I realized like, holy shit, that's me. Like they're
Yeah.
sleeping
You're
well
taking.
at night
Yeah.
because I'm taking care of their son.
Right.
And that whole journey of leadership, it certainly didn't begin and end in the engine room of the Hampton, but that was sort of like my first realization of like, hey, this is not like any of those books that I read. Like it's these are, every human being is much more complicated and complex than any piece of machinery will ever be. And now
Yeah.
you got a group of how many of them here? So now the group dynamic is as complicated.
Egos and stuff as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, especially in the military.
Yeah.
Everybody
Um,
wants to be the alpha, you know.
oh, 100%. And so, and then right around that time, 9/11 occurred, and I had done a few deployments on that submarine. And I grew up, I think I mentioned in New Jersey. My mom watched the events of 9/11 from her front doorstep. That
Mm,
was a very personal attack for me, and I have my feelings on this situation are a little bit different now than they were then,
right.
in terms of the geopolitical nature of it all.
Sure.
But I was coming up on my shore duty, and I was like, I want to go to Iraq, and they're like, well, you're a nuclear engineer serving on a nuclear submarine. We don't have any billets in Iraq, and I was like, bullshit. Like, we're trying to get all the people we can over there. Send me over there. And I got what I wanted. I spent about a year and a half in the Middle East, stationed out of Bahrain, but did a lot of trips into Basra and places like that. I was part of the staff of Commander Middle East Force for the Navy.
Mm,
So they made a submarine billet there. Not that submarines had any involvement in um, Operation Iraqi Freedom, or tangentially, I suppose, with some Tomahawk strikes in the beginning, but nothing really to speak of. So I ended up doing some cool stuff over there. At one point, I was on a Coast Guard ship, the ADAC, with a Kuwaiti interpreter, and we met. I don't know if you remember those playing cards. Remember they passed out like the
oh,
52,
yeah.
and so we had our deck of playing cards, and we were boarding fishing vessels looking for AK-47s and Iraqi artwork. Because I should have mentioned I got there in March of 2003, so
Oh, shit, okay.
right when it
I was
started.
there in January 2003, so, yeah, you
Is
came
that
a couple
right?
months. Yeah, I was in Kuwait, and I I was in, started off a place called Camp Commando Kuwait,
Okay.
and then when we infiltrated in, we ended up in, Babylon, Iraq.
Okay. Oh, so you were there at the same. You were there during the initial push.
Invasion, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny. I don't know if you felt the same way, but that was the time I spent there was my realization is that the military is not as organized as people think it is. Like, don't get me wrong, on a day-to-day squad level, it's very disciplined. But in terms of like, how we're using our armed forces to do certain things, it was a success, but it was a success because good people do hard work that they were otherwise inexperienced to do, right? So, for example, I remember at one point I was writing the air plans for the helicopters in Iraq, and I'm not an air guy, and they're like, "Well, it's vertical separation, just like a submarine. You can figure it out." And there was a lot of that type of stuff where, I think if there's one differentiator between that I've seen from the military to civilian society, it's like just figure it out. Like there is no, and it's interesting too, right, Brian? Because
A
like
lot of that.
especially on a submarine, we have this reputation of following procedures for everything, um, which is true when you're dealing with a nuclear reactor. But on the other hand, like I run out of fingers and toes to count the number of times we're in the middle of nowhere and have this like crazy event happen, and it's like I don't figure it out. Like no one's coming to rescue you. So like, and that mentality is probably the mentality that I admire the most in at least in the communities that I had the honor to engage with, right? So the submarine community, for the most part. I remember one time we were on deployment, and our 10K evaporator, the thing that makes water for both drinking and keep the reactor safe, just stopped working. And we have a backup called a 1.6K distillator, and that wasn't working. So we just ran out of the ability to make water. And I was the chief engineer at the time, and I remember my chief mechanic, who was a brand new chief, and he's like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, hey chief, like failure's not an option here, man. Like this is water. Like
Yeah.
we're really
We
far
have
away
to
from
survive.
everything. Like we gotta figure this out. And that effort was like, I mean, we had guys in the machinery room going through garbage looking for old Coke cans to get the aluminum to flatten them out to create a shim for the low pressure brine pump. I mean, if you've
Wow.
ever seen that movie Apollo 11 where they like throw a bunch of crap on the table and say like, this is what they have up there, figure it out. It was exactly like that, and I love that shit. Like I love that. Like,
That's definitely problem solving right there.
yeah, yeah. And
Critical thinking.
100%. And for people who are either thinking about transitioning or in the middle of a transition, that was probably my most challenging thing associated with the transition. Like just like like how to express it? Like it came across as very like um unempathetic to tell people like, well, I don't know, do your job, man. Like figure this out. Like I know you've never seen this before, but guess what? I haven't either. So it sounds like you might be asking me to do your work for you. And if you are, fine, I'll do it. Otherwise, you do it. And I don't get me wrong, those aren't the words I choose to use. I mean,
Right.
I'm a people person, but at the end of the day, like you can only deal with like, civilians, and I hate that term sounds derogatory. I don't mean it that way, but who have just don't have that same experience of ownership. Obviously Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership, is, it takes it to a whole nother level, but he's right. Like, being able to just say, look, I got it. I will figure this out. I got it. That skill set alone, I think, is more marketable and valuable in the real world than anything else the military teaches us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably lacking in the common person, you know what I mean? That's the hard part. That's why I think our military is so strong,
I read an interesting thing about World War II. They said one of the big differentiators between us and the Germans was that if you took out the platoon leader of the German army, they were dead in the water. Like
they
whereas,
needed someone to give them direction and order as to where we're all trained already to know how to react and take direction. We don't
and it was
need
just
someone
next
to.
man up in the
Yep.
America. It was just like, so then, then the sergeant takes over, and if the sergeant gets whacked, then the corporal takes over. Like it was and I didn't
Definitely
realize, I
got a
mean,
pecking order going in on our side.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but I hadn't thought of it before in the context of World War II, and I think it was like a documentary or it was something I was watching where they said that was a big, big differentiator. You couldn't stop an American platoon by taking out the leader. You just couldn't.
And I guess I've never thought about it to that level either. That is a good point though. And I think too, I don't know, we just have that drive. Every guy I've ever served with or whatever, they just want to keep, let's get it, like let's get at it. I didn't really anybody tell anybody say, let's run, or nothing like that.
Right. Certainly not let's give up.
Yeah.
Like
Well, that's the thing. And in a lot of the situations we're put in, just like when you guys are down there in a submarine, man, there is not you have to figure it out. There's no, we can't, or, that could be the difference between life and death at that point in time, or injury and those type of things. That's why it's like, hey, dude, well, guess what? We just better go figure it out. We better go cut something from somewhere else and make this work,
100%.
and limp home, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and to me, that mindset is so powerful, not just in our professional experience, but just our lives. Like when you
Right.
like I have a 6.5-year-old son, and I'm very gentle with him. I'm an older father. I'm a teddy bear with him, but I was taking him home from a basketball game, and we were talking about rebounding because he really wasn't doing much of that. And I wasn't being a jerk. I was just saying, talk about rebounding, and he said something about it's not my fault. I pulled the car over. I got out of the car. I took him out of the car. I got down on one knee. I looked him in the eye. I said, I don't ever want to hear those words come out of your mouth again, ever. Okay, we're not victims. Okay,
Yeah.
I'd never want to hear it's not my fault. Like I hate hearing that from anyone.
Yeah, same.
It's that victim mentality that even if it's true, it doesn't matter. Like the fact is, like it doesn't serve us well at all to think that way. And I
See, and
think
that's our mindset, bro. Because I'm thinking the same line as you. You know what I mean? Like when I hear my kid have a negative, I can't do it, or yes, you can, and you're gonna do it. You know what I mean? Don't tell me you can't do it. Now you're gonna do it, brother. Like we're gonna get her done. But
that's right. Well, and I think honestly, like as a patriot, like I think that mentality is what really has distinguished America over the years. Like we are a we can do it group. And quite frankly, like I have some concerns about our culture, not our military culture, but just our country's culture of this
sure.
like
Yep.
victim mentality. Like there's always a reason to blame someone else for something. Like if you want to, I could blame anyone for anything.
There's a lot of deflect, and no ownership, right? And everybody wants to deflect, and it's someone else's problem, and it's because of them, because of this, and it's, oh, wait a second. It sounds like the common denominator might be you. You don't want to own that, right?
And even if it's not your fault, like if you're blaming things that you can't control, your mind is always listening, right? Your mind's like a little toddler. I mean, it's always listening, and so when you tell it things, it believes it. And
Right.
so I've learned to be very careful about the words I choose to say because I know my mind will take me at my word. If I say like we can't do this, my mind goes, okay, we can't do this. Um, and that meant I think that has been, that was my favorite part of being in the military was when I was a little bit more senior, being able to train the junior guys. Nothing brought me more satisfaction than that. And I remain in touch with damn near everyone who I consider DiGeronimo trained. And those types of lessons were really at the core of what I tried to get these guys to realize because prior to being in an operational unit, and it's not our fault, but look at what we send our kids to school. They just show up, they do what they're told. You're handed a syllabus. The whole institution exists for your benefit, right? Like you're the center of it all as a student. And then you finally get somewhere where you realize like you're not the center of the universe and you're here to support this mission. And to do that, you need to step up and act like an adult, and I would not let, this is kind of silly, but I would not let them ask me questions. And what I mean by that is tell me what you want to do. Like assume I was dead, right? And you're in this situation and you say, hey, and I have a situation. Here's the problem, and this is what I intend to do. Now, to me, that's the same thing as saying, "Hey, what should I do?" Because I know I'm in charge, and if I don't like it, I will stop you. But by saying it that way, you forced yourself to think through it and tell me, if I was not around, what would you do?
And not only that, but you came with a solution, not a problem.
Right.
Right. And the solution can be, if you like, they come to you with a bad solution, you can say, wait, I like that you have an idea, but let's do it this way.
That's
Right. I
right.
mean, it's more, it's a guidance. They're looking for more of a guidance from you, not like, give me the answer. Like
Right.
I'm at the answer,
Well, I remember I learned that the hard way when I was an ensign. I was the reactor controls officer, and we were having a problem with some nuclear instrumentation. And I was working with the chief and some of the techs, and we're back there, and we had basically three options. And the engineer came back and said, "Hey, are you ready to brief the captain?" And I said, "Sure." And so I go to the captain's stateroom, and I said, "Here's the problem, and we can do A, B, or C, Captain. What would you like to do?" And the engineer grabbed me by my uniform, threw me out of the stateroom. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like I thought, like it's his ship. He gets to decide, right? And man, I learned a lesson I'll never forget. It was like you don't ever talk to the captain like that before. You don't put him on the spot and ask him what he wants to do. Like he's relying on you to tell him. He knows he's in charge. You don't have to remind him. If he doesn't like your solution, he'll tell you.
Yep, exactly. And so how long what's the longest you spent on a submarine ship?
Well, I've done a 7-month deployment, but the longest I've been submerged was just over 100 days, about 103 days.
That's a long time, man. I mean, was there guys ever freaking out on the like, because they felt like they were so enclosed, or was everybody pretty well trained? And was there anybody
Amazingly
that
well
they
trained.
said, "Hey, you can't do this," because they started getting claustrophobic or any of those type of things?
I've seen that happen about 3 times, and in all 3 times, well, I shouldn't say that. 2 of the times, the person was, like, brand new, and I don't believe them. I think it was just too rough of an environment for
They
them, and
didn't
they
want to
just
be
used it
there,
as an excuse.
right?
The 3rd guy, he was a more senior guy, he was a chief, and he just had a mental breakdown. And they ended up, I think, at one point, they're handcuffing him to his rack or something. I mean, he just for his own safety. I mean,
Yeah,
it was bad. Um, and that's it. I mean, but when you consider all the people and all the hours and all the days, 3 is a pretty low number.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I saw people. I don't think we were very attuned to mental health. Maybe they're not now. I don't know. Um, but I saw some people like sink into some pretty deep depressions. Um, and it's on a submarine. Everyone's tired. One of the things that I don't, people don't probably realize is that to run a submarine the way it would be more like human, you would need more people, but we don't have room for more people. So you just ask a lot of the people who you do have room for, and as a consequence, sleep is very valuable, and usually people are sleep deprived.
So
So
you
it's like,
guys know that meaning do more with less,
yeah,
100%.
yeah, and so it's all. I mean, I can't count the number of times I've gone, and I'm sure it's everyone in the military. You've gone 3 days, 4 days without sleep. You start disassociating
Yeah.
in your mind, and it's crazy, right? But um, so I guess the reason I say that is because I think some of that masked the way people were handling. You're so used to seeing everyone kind of tired, just waking up out of bed and a little cranky. I did, I've had more than one extended conversation with folks back in the smoke pit about, their challenges of just getting through another day, and they miss their families, um, and those are the people that are willing to talk about it. So, I can only imagine, I mean, I had one deployment where I felt like that. I mean, I felt like I was in prison. I mean, I just like they really disliked the commanding officer. Um, and it was like just one day at a time, one day at a time. Just get to the next meal, get to the next meal.
Yeah. Gosh dang, I gotta imagine that. It's got to be rough though to be stuck into the ship for a while. I mean, and you guys are with each other and day in, day out. I imagine there's a little bit of some bickering and someone maybe, want to go toe to toe with someone down there because you just like, all right, we're good. We're good. Like,
I had a stabbing on a submarine once. It was
oh,
on
no
my
shit.
watch
Yeah.
too. The
Wow.
quartermaster stabbed the fathometer. He had, it was a little, like,
Baby gash,
but he boom, just stabbed him. And I was the officer of the deck, and I remember the chief of the I didn't know what happened because it was they both immediately realized that, oh shit, we're in trouble. But
yeah.
the one guy's bleeding, and they were pretty quiet about it. And the chief of the boat was like, "Do you know that your quartermaster just stabbed your fathometer watch?" And I was like, "No, I didn't know that."
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah, but I will tell you that it's remarkable how little of that happens. Like, you just get to know each other so well. It's like
You really
anyone
become
you've
like a
ever
family, I
deployed with
imagine.
is a family
Yeah.
member.
Yeah.
And you see everyone at their best. Like, in port, you can kind of, you go home and you shower at home. You could put on a good face and for 8 to 9 hours, be, chief so and so or lieutenant so and then go home and decompress. But at sea, there's none of that. Like, you are who you are, and everyone sees you what you look like 2 seconds after you wake up, and everyone knows what you act like when you're cranky, and you
Like
really.
who the hell farted and everything. Like, gosh,
That's
dang,
right.
man, I know who that guy stink.
That's right, 100%. It's
Uh,
horrible, but it's true.
I bet it is. All right, man. Well, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we'll kind of talk about what made you decide to go ahead and get on out and call it, and how transition and all that stuff has been
Sure.
treating you and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to do 2 little commercials and then we'll be right back.
All right, Brian.
Hey y'all, Hot Rod Wally here. Finally, a revolutionary nutrient line that puts the needs of you and your plants first. Easy to use, forgiving, tweakable, versatile, and clean. Utopic Essential Nutrients blends only the most refined raw materials, the perfect blend of plant hormones derived from kelp, along with silica and humates, makes Utopic a powerhouse plant food. From commercial industrial growers down to our beloved hobbyists. Come discover our truth at www.utopicessentialnutrients.com. Come get them.
American made, veteran owned, we are Doc Goodbeard. It's more than just looking good. When it comes to your beard, we believe you can have it all. Thoughtfully designed, unique fragrances, and affordable prices. We strive to provide a line of uniquely scented balms and oils that you won't find in other products. Come on, rock with Doc, and remember, it's all about the beard, man. So what do you say? Let's take that average beard and make it badass. Go to docbeard.com. All right.
Cool.
All right, man. Oh yeah, thank you, man. Good people. The first guy is a Navy veteran. He was a corpsman and a good guy. And the second guy is a Marine veteran. Kevin, he's a good guy as well. So just love having it and representing all of our veterans and giving them some love as much as we can, man.
The Navy corpsmen are the real deal.
Oh gosh, yeah, they are. Them, and I love the Seabees. I love Navy Seabees too, because those guys were impressive.
I wanted to be a CB.
Is that right?
Well, when I went to college, I had second thoughts because now I was exposed to all these different things that the military does, and I wanted to be a CB, and they're like, "No, you're chained to the nuclear submarine community. They're the ones paying you to go through school, and that's where you're going back."
It just seemed like you had the smarts for it too, man, and that's probably hard to find, And he's like you said, it was like a 30% pass rate or something like that. So, I mean, obviously you were that part of that percent. Yep.
Needs of the Navy come first.
Yeah, and damn, in those Navy the Seabees, tell you what, they could put up a structure. I mean, we'd go out and do like a little convoy, come back, and they would already have something erected up, and they'd be out there with their blouses off, so just chilling, sweating, drinking some water, And he was like, damn, dude, you guys already put that up? Yeah, we're getting ready to go to the next one. I was like, good.
That's
Knocked
awesome.
out, man. But all right, man, let's go ahead and kind of switch it up and talk more into what ended up making you transition out and get out of the Navy.
Mhm.
And then what that kind of looked like for you. Was it rough? Did you go through any, mental health issues and stuff like that? I mean, imagine being on a Navy submarine, that there had to be some kind of stuff that stuck with you after that, and
Yeah.
but yeah, so go
Yeah.
ahead and
So I before I came into the Navy, I had damaged my right leg pretty bad in a football game. Um, it broke the tibia, fibia, dislocated
oh
the ankle, 5 broken
dude.
bones in the ankle, shredded all the ligaments. I mean, and it was a muddy day, but it wasn't it was just a freak accident.
You
That was
sound
like
like you
2 years.
just were mangled,
Yeah,
like my
it was bad.
gosh.
So, but they put it all together, and then I lied to the recruiter about it. And so, the scar on my leg, I said, he goes, if we were, he knew, but he said, if we say it's a surgery, it's going to be a big deal. Like, you could just say you cut your leg on a piece of barbed wire. And I was like, all right, let's say that. So, anyway, so that's how I got into the Navy with that condition. And then when I was in the Middle East and I was doing some boarding events at the beginning of OIF, I, uh, I twisted it pretty bad, um, and just I think what I ended up breaking a bone in my ankle, doing some damage to the ligament, and I think because we were so far away from you couldn't just sit down and say, "Hey, I'm on some Iranian fishing vessel." Like, you don't, they're not going to help.
Yeah.
Um, I think that made it a little bit worse. Anyway, that made it worse, and then I never really could get it back. I
So
had a
you
lot
didn't
of
it never probably healed right or anything. It's not like you had physical therapy and
right.
all that. No time for any of that.
So, like, my last assignment was as an inspector. I was a part of a group called the Operational Reactor Safeguards Examination Team, or um, and it was like a 3-day inspection, but you're on your feet all 3 days. And I used to just I would tell the cooks, like, I just need a bucket of ice available at all times, and I would just lop my right leg in that. And finally, they were like, "Look, this is silly. Like, you can't keep doing this." And so I got a medical evaluation, and they never really got to the bottom of it, but it was clear that this wasn't going to work. So I just shy of 20 years, I was medically retired. Um, and then I kind of was like, it's funny that I kind of mentioned I had some mental health issues before I came into the Navy. I think for 20 years they were masked, because as soon as I got out, it was like I was 18 again. Like, they
Uh,
all came back, and I was left
wow.
with the same person I was when I was 18, and having to figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up. So I bounced around. I was in Hawaii at the time. Um, I had my own business there for a while. I bounced around some stuff, and um,
Pretty expensive to live out there too, huh?
yeah, it's ridiculous. It's insane. Um,
Tax pretty crazy out there as well.
and I did. I mean, just, for the, benefit of the people who are listening, like, it's natural. I think I'm not, I think I'm okay to admit it, that I had some mental health issues that were undiagnosed, and they were getting out of control. And I sought help. I got help, and I still get help.
Right.
Um, and then in terms of, like, what made it worse or better in terms of being in the military, that's all somewhat tough to determine. But the my point is, I'm just proud of myself for getting help, because
That's a hard thing to do.
when I go back to we think about what you and I were just talking about like that whole idea of, like, nope, I got it, I'll figure it out. Um, it's hard to have that and then also realize, like, hey, I need help. And what I kind of came to the conclusion of is, like, hey, Matt, when you're limping around because your leg is broken, do you say, "Oh, I'll just figure it out," or do you get help? And of course, I get help, right? So it's just part of your body, right? I mean, your brain is just part of your body, and if it's not functioning right and it's not serving you right, get help. Just that simple, you know. Um, one of the ways that always helped me, I mean, I've been out for about 10 years, and I've had a good post-Navy career. I've done, my first real job was I was the general manager of a coal-fired power plant in Kansas City, and
Dang,
then,
dude, GM right off rip.
yep,
That's nice. That's a great land.
yeah, and then, took a regional position in that same company, and now I'm in electrical engineering, electrical testing, as a regional guy as well.
Just a fast tracker in life, man.
Well, I mean, I've definitely had the ball roll my way a few times, and I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome.
But one of the things that I've done wherever I've been is right. Like I just, some people like their thing is bowling or hunting or golfing. My thing is writing, and so the first book that I wrote, I co-wrote it with a guy I served with in the Navy called his name's Bob Kuntz, and we were just having conversation not dissimilar to this one about like our experiences. We were probably out of the Navy for 3 years or so. And we were just reflecting on all these things that the Navy submarine force did well that the civilian community did not, and how much of it was transferable, right? I mean, like what some of it you can't, right? You can't send every employee through a year-long training program with a 30% graduation rate and then only take the top 30%, right? You can just companies can't afford to do that.
Right.
But there are other things about, standards and expectations and communication, and we have some principles such as questioning attitude and watch team backup that seem to work, because the Navy's had an unmatched safety record when it comes to operating nuclear power, which is pretty crazy when you think the average age of an operator back there is like 23 years old, right? So we wrote a book called Extreme Operational Excellence about kind of about those principles. And much to my surprise, it got a lot of good feedback from large companies. So Bob and I spent a couple of years doing some public speaking and training to various companies about the topics in that book, which was cool. But I also learned something interesting about organizations and leadership, and that's like if the boardroom wants something, like they'll get it, right? So the guys in the C-suite, want the authors of these books to go out to the oil fields and talk to their guys about operational excellence. They'll get it. But if the frontline supervisors aren't plugged in, you're just wasting your time. Like it's the frontline supervisor in any organization I've ever been in. It's the frontline supervisors, the NCOs, who you're either going to succeed or fail because of them. And it's one of the reasons why I don't think we were all that successful. Or I shouldn't say that. I mean, Bob continues to run a very successful company, but I've had a couple instances where I didn't feel like the project was a success because we didn't have the buy-in from the frontline supervisors, because they're like, well, I'm in West Texas on a fracking oil site, and the guy's like, you're a submarine guy, like why are you here and when are you leaving? I mean, it was like, what am I going to say to him, right?
You seem like a nuisance.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you got to trust the messenger before you care about the message, right?
Right.
And it's really hard to develop trust as a consultant. Every leadership success that I've ever had has involved some level of being able to first develop trust with the people that I'm working with, and then allowing them the leeway to flourish, right? And the support to do their job the way they see fit, and to listen to what, the people closest to the action always have the best answers, not the other way around. But sometimes that's really hard to get people to speak up. And that's one thing that was tough about the transition in the military. If I walked around the submarine and talked to people would talk to me, if they tell me what's on their mind. That trust doesn't exist in the civilian world as much, like it takes a lot more effort to get people to speak up and tell you what they're thinking.
Absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. Because I think in this, at least my experience in the civilian world, it felt very cutthroat. you know, and everybody was just in there for themselves type stuff. And, you know, you couldn't really even talk about like if you were getting a raise, what your hourly rate was, or any of those kind of things, right? Because it was, you talk about it, it'd start up a fire, you know, like, how much did you come in here making? What? I've been here for 5 years and I'm making this. Like, you know, this is stuff that we didn't have to deal with in the military, right? You're E1, you got an E1 pay, you know, it's a E2, you're E2, you know, E3, it just goes that way. Civilian world, bro, it's very figured out and cutthroat, and I think that we have a lack of trust because it's just the environment feels kind of hostile. At least I felt that way.
I agree with that.
I worked in the aerospace industry, and it felt very cutthroat, and you would really had to go in there for yourself, you know, and fight for your raises or anything like that. It's like the squeaky wheel got the attention.
Yeah. I think that was one of the tougher parts of my transition was, and I'm not there yet. I mean, I don't think it ever ends. I don't think we ever transition. I think we deal with it better, but we're always going to miss the camaraderie and the mission. And there's never going to be a replacement for that.
And no matter what, it may not be our identity, but it will be a part of our identity, right? 100%. There is a part of us that, when you're trained that way and you live that way, especially someone who's done 4+, you know, I mean, after that, you're damn near indoctrinated. You know, you're wired completely to the military.
100%.
But so we'll get more into, I guess, your books and the inspiration to write more books. And, you know, after you did the Extreme Operational Excellence book, what made you to go ahead and keep on writing and doing more?
Yeah, so I had a son. I didn't expect to. You know, I an older father. I was should be able to do this. I was 44 when my son was born, and a couple years later, I just got this idea that like I wanted to write a book capturing like my life lessons in the form of letters to him. But as I was writing it, I was realizing like this isn't really just a hunter. This is to anyone. Like it's kind of an interesting way to write a memoir or an autobiography because it doesn't follow like the timeline of my life, but you know, just different topics, whether it's persistence or courage, relationships, education, hardship. Like just kind of here's some things that I learned, and hopefully you can have this for the rest of your life to, you know, even if I'm not there, to reflect on it. So kind of a softer side of me came out as I was writing that. And then I began to explore my writing again in that more creative space, which really I didn't have the opportunity to let loose in the military. And so, for example, I recently published my third book called Actualization, based on this concept that I had pretty early on or years ago. It was after I am divorced. I'm married now, but I went through a divorce, and somewhere I read, and I wish I remember where, but someone wrote, like, stop looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right and start becoming Mr. or Mrs. Right. You know, like if you become Mr. or Mrs. Right, then you'll find Mr. or Mrs. Right, right? And it was this idea of that I latched onto about looking at goals differently. And so, for example, in the military, if I'm a lieutenant who really wants to make lieutenant commander at first look, don't make making lieutenant commander my goal. Just I want to be the best lieutenant I can be, right? Because the Navy will give the people who can carry the weight of the rank or are ready to carry the weight of the rank. You know, think of it like that, right? So like a lot of times I see people with these dreams that are big, which is great, and then it overwhelms them. And so they make their dreams or their goals smaller. And the point of this book is like, you don't need to make your dreams smaller. You need to make yourself bigger. Like you have to, if you don't have what you what you want to have, it's because you're not ready for it yet. So make yourself ready. And that's kind of flipping the script on a lot of the existing information out there about, goal setting and to-do lists and, all this productivity hacks, which, to me it's noise. I'm not saying some of it's not useful. I'm guilty of it myself, but what I tried to capture was like, how do you get yourself ready for your goals?
To
Like
be and make it more of your lifestyle, right? Like if you
right.
inspire for that lifestyle, start trying to make that lifestyle for yourself, right? Like, or
live that lifestyle now. Don't wait for, like,
makes
I'll put myself out there, right? Like my goal is to be a proclaimed author, like a New York Times bestseller type guy, right? So instead of fixating on that, I drilled down into like, okay, well, what are the types of things that I will do as a New York Times bestselling author? Like, what will my day look like? What will my writing routine look like? How will I carry myself? How will that change my writing? And is there anything stopping me from doing that right now? And if I become that person, the universe has a way of giving us things that we're ready to carry or to handle. And to me, that's not only a more effective approach, it's a more peaceful approach, because it's less stressful about like, oh, I got to get this and I got to get this and I got to put my to-do list and I got to do an ice bath in the morning and wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I got to read this book and listen to this podcast. Whoa, slow down. Let's get some alignment and some
trying to boil the ocean right there. You know what I mean? That's a lot. Yeah, that's I think a lot of us too, right? Like we don't have the patience and we want everything now, and that's part of it too, is that we don't get that quick gratification from something. We tend to like, oh, never mind, it's not happening because it didn't happen for you overnight, or it didn't happen within a week or something. And a lot of that's even like becoming a podcaster. If people are going to listen to me my first episode, might be a little rough, to get them. But if they see that I'm consistent and I have a lot out there, they might start listening to it more, right? And
how long was Joe Rogan on the air?
Yeah.
How long was Joe Rogan on the air before people even knew who he was? Years, right?
Yep. And that's part of it. And I think a lot of people don't understand. You got to put a little bit of work into it to get your fruit, and that's just like when you go to plant a tree. The fruit doesn't just come right away. You got to take care of that plant and grow that plant. And then eventually you get the fruit. And then sometimes even the fruit right off the first pull isn't great. Sometimes it takes a couple runs to get some really good fruit. But I mean, it's kind of the same concept, right?
That's amazing that you said that. You know why? When I really kicked off my writing efforts this time, which was just a few months ago, where I said, all right, let's get serious. I planted 4 bonsai trees, and I said, all right, I'm going to use this to remind me that what success is, right? Because eventually they're going to sprout and I'm going to get excited, but nothing special happened on that day. It was just doing all the right things every day to get these things to grow. And I would like to mirror that in my own efforts in writing. So it's amazing that you use that analogy.
Yeah, and I like bonsais exactly because you got to train a bonsai, and bonsais take a while to get them to make it look like that really cool thing, right? So I love that you're doing that with bonsais, as a matter of fact, because there's nothing more intimate than that. It's kind of like an art within itself, right?
Yeah.
Within a plant, and you get to mess with it and turn it into what you want. But yeah, I think that's a lot of life is like that, right? I mean, and it's just a matter of planting that seed, watering it, taking care of it, and then allowing it to grow into something great, and that's just, I think a lot of us, we get scared, and we self-doubt ourselves. There's so many people out there that quit on something before they ever were able to be successful, and they don't even know that they were ever going to be successful because they quit.
100%. I think, we talk about like, this might be a bad example, but I'll use it anyway. Like Michael Jordan being the best basketball player. Like, I don't know that that's true. I know he's the best basketball player who didn't give up. But there might be some
And
high
that could be an
school.
error thing too. Like you grew up watching Michael Jordan, so do you. He is. But if someone likes, James or someone, like it just they have their thought of him or Kobe Bryant, or those kind of guys. I think
Or
it's
there
all.
could be a kid out there whose name you and I don't know, who quit in
Yep.
high school,
Yeah.
but had he stayed in there, would have been, the Babe
The next
Ruth of
greatest.
basketball. Like, we have no
Right.
idea. Like, even authors, right? Like, we say, like, oh, Ernest Hemingway. It's like, well, okay, I know that Ernest Hemingway was successful because he didn't give up. That's all I know. I don't know that he was the best writer. The graveyard is full of wonderful ideas. There's more great ideas in the graveyard than anywhere because of
And how many
reasons.
books did he write before, that one that, was a good bestseller or something like that? And sometimes
That's right.
some of these authors die and then all of a sudden they become these astounded and they never even were alive to watch that,
100% true.
Some of these people that we talk about are dead, but we still have so much admiration for them and their work,
100%.
and they don't even know that it's carried on 100 years later.
That's right. You just have to have the courage to just pursue whatever it is that your calling is, and not let your inner critic convince you otherwise. And it's tough because that inner critic can be an ass. I wrestle with them all the time.
So with your goal in mind, how many more books you got in the works, man? Or do you have books that you're already thinking about? Like, okay, once I kind of complete this one, I got the next one. You got it lined up. Well, see, yeah, man, you're definitely inspiring to be what you want to be.
Yeah. In fact, the next I've working on the outline for this for months, and it's somewhat military based. The expression "embrace the suck." Like,
yes,
I want to write a book that's just called "Suck," and just talks about like how to deal with like sometimes in writing I'll say like allow yourself to suck, right? Like, so when the inner critic says, oh, this sucks, and okay, fine, I'm gonna do this anyway, even though it sucks. And there's embrace the suck, and the things that work that suck, and just a kind of like a full exploration of dealing with a life full of suck. So that's the idea of my next book.
I like that one. That one might even be a little fun.
Yeah, it is going to be fun.
Yeah, I like that. So that's great, man. Now is your goal just to keep on writing as they come to you, and however many you may end up with is as many as you end up with?
Yeah, I mean, I have no end in sight. Right now, I'm very involved on a social media platform called Substack, and I write. I would say I put something out maybe every other day, like just essays on different topics.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
You do short stories and stuff like that too, or
not a lot of fiction, but like short, like just sort of. I don't like the word motivational because it sounds cheesy, but just like some observation about leadership or life. Just to get people thinking about things in a different way. Usually I write in ways that can be digested, in 4 to 5 minutes. And it gets, if you're on Substack, and my publication is called Beyond Platitudes. And, I just try to push conventional wisdom and get people thinking about things slightly differently. And I push it out in the morning, and the people who read it, they can digest it in 4 to 5 minutes, and it just gives them something to think about that day.
Now, do you find yourself being more of a writer than a reader, or are you both? Do you like reading as well?
I'm both. So it's funny. It's a great question. Stephen King actually said, if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. So, it has to go hand in hand. It just does. Like if you want to be a great baseball player, you got to watch baseball. You can't just play it. You got to watch it. And same thing with writing. If you want to be a great writer, you got to read and be. It's easy to get envious and say, well, I don't want to read other people's stuff, but you have to appreciate how other people approach things. And
well, I imagine it's kind of like learning as well, right? When when you're a writer, reading's probably a little bit different to you than the person who just kind of does it more of like a hobby. I love to read. You probably look at kind of the style, how it's broken down, and then you're like, it probably gives you guys ideas once in a while too, right? Like,
100%.
and like, dang, oh, I kind of like that. And then it spirals off into your own idea. I mean,
Yeah, we
I
don't have
think
to. I mean, it's not plagiarism. I steal ideas
no,
all the time.
it's no, well,
I don't steal
that's
words,
what
but I
we're,
steal ideas.
well, that's what we're here for though, is we just constantly are learning from one another, right?
That's right.
There's things that I don't know. There's things I know you don't know, right? And it's just a transfer of knowledge from time to time. And I know some people get like, well, it's my knowledge. Well, hey, I mean, teach his own, but I think sharing knowledge is a great thing. And it's one thing taking someone's stuff and then copying and pasting it. It's a different thing from taking it and then making your own out of it and developing something different. And that also that's got to be a compliment to the person that you're
100%.
doing that as well, right? Because I mean, they got to be like, gosh, dang, that person really liked what I did. So look at them out there trying to do something similar. That's great.
Yeah, 100. I mean, I would be. It happens to me from time to time, and I love it. I mean, if somebody can, I mean, one thing that I'm finding that I'm able to do on Substack that reminds me of my favorite thing in the military is I'm meeting people who are just getting into writing, and I'm able to encourage them to keep at it and keep doing it. And I'm passing some lessons along that I've learned, the hard way over the years. And it's a really cool environment. It's a social media platform unlike any that I've been a part of. There's no assholes, no trolls. It's just a very
That's good.
supportive group. Yeah.
Everybody's in it for, a good purpose and
Yeah.
to be help in a positive manner, right? Because I feel like everybody wants to take a crack at someone when they see that they're doing good. It's crazy to me how some people will make fun of someone else's great things that they've done in their life, right? Like their accomplishments or something, and someone makes fun of someone else's accomplishments. It's just world. It's a weird world we start to live in when people want to hate someone because of what good they're doing, right?
Yeah, and I think you probably deal with this as a podcaster. I have a really and it's just my own issues, right? I can't even read the Amazon reviews of my books. Like I know
Yeah,
most of them are positive, but I know there's some negative ones in there, and I don't want to read.
always gonna be the
I don't. I
negative
don't want to
people.
hear it. Like, um, but when I'm forced to hear it, like something, I'll get an email and someone tells me how much they hate my face or they hate my whatever, and um, I just remind myself that we don't punch down, right? So if someone's punching you, they think they're punching up, and so
Don't
I
stoop to that level, right? Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah, I'm
good. That's
sure
a
you
good way.
get some of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always ignore the trolls, right?
Yeah,
And I also start to look at it as if someone's attacking me or somewhat envious of what's going on, or you're jealous of the situation, or you didn't have the balls to do it.
right.
So for me, I don't take it as an insult anymore. You gotta, when you do get yourself in these kind of situations, you do have to think that other way of like not really caring what someone else thinks.
Yeah.
This is your mission, and you're in it for yourself, because there's gonna be those people that are gonna want to tear you down, right? And I hate giving them credit when they get you a little bit, because I tell you what, bro, I'm one that has a hard time biting my tongue. I'm getting better as I'm getting older to realize to process things before I just go out there, like want to just lose it. But as an author too, how do you deal with when you drop a book, right? And do you start to pay attention to how many sales you're getting? Um, you want to have reviews? Do you not care for reviews? How does all that stuff play out? Because I've had several authors on here, and I know reviews are typically big for an author. They really want you to give them the reviews and stuff like that. How do you deal with all that kind of stuff? And is that even a part of your thing, or you just write it and if one person buys it, you're happy?
Yeah, I wish I could say I'm that strong. I'm not. Like it,
Right.
it, it, it matters.
Sure.
But I will admit, I have a very difficult time reading even positive reviews. Like it makes me feel almost embarrassed. Like I can't explain it, but like I've gotten some very touching letters from people who have read some of what I've written, like handwritten letters mailed to my house. And like, it would be nice if my prevailing emotion was one of like happiness and pride, but it's embarrassment. It's like, because I know all my shortcomings, and I know like no one should put me on a pedestal, right? So like it's just hard for me. That's a very difficult.
It's hard to be humble for you, I see, man. You have a hard time being humble there with in terms of when someone gives you any kind of, even a good accolades, you don't know how to receive it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not good, but I also know that as an author, if I want to do this, my books need to have positive reviews, or I'm not going to continue to be an author. So um, it's important to me, but I just don't. I don't know how to handle it.
So so then this is probably something you maybe, I don't know, you may not venture down this road, but doing like book signings, sitting down and
Yeah, I've
doing
done
book
that.
signings. Is that okay with you? Like you can do
Yeah.
that more?
I
Yeah.
mean, because
Okay.
at least there I feel a little bit more human, right? I can talk to
Talk.
people, and
Yeah. Okay.
and say, hey, where, and make it about and find out what their story is like. Why are you interested in this book? And
Right.
sometimes like with the submarine book, I find people say, oh, my son's on the USS Virginia, or I served on the whatever. Like that's cool to meet people one on one. I just have a difficult time with sort of either criticism or positive reviews
Accolades.
kind
Yeah.
of coming out of the clear blue sky and been reading them on the internet.
Yeah. I know that I would hate to hear the bad reviews too.
Yeah, it's
I just, I don't think I can. That's got to be the rough part because, same with me, man. I know I'm not the perfect podcaster. I don't really edit my stuff. I do stutter here and there. I might blank out and forget what I was saying for a second. I'm authentic as you're gonna get, in terms of that. And like I said, you're either gonna stick with me or you're not gonna want to deal with it. But you're at least gonna get the real me at all times. There's no bleeping out something or I'm gonna, oh shoot, I need to go edit that. I messed up.
That's important. And here's something that I have to tell myself this. Let's say that let's be optimistic. I'm not going to say if, I'll say when I get to where I hope to get to as an author, right?
Yeah, we're gonna speak it into your life. It's gonna
So
happen.
let's say that when
Just
I
when
have
it does.
a
Yeah.
million people who are followers and really can't wait for my next book to drop and all that, right? That's a million people. It's huge, right? That's 0.004% of the world population.
Right.
So my tribe is super small. So what I try to remind myself is like when someone says, I hate your face and I hate what you write and I hate whatever and I hate your dog, I say, okay, well, they're part of the 99.6% that's not part of my tribe.
Yep. There
Like
you go.
it's not and
That's a
don't get
good
me
way to
wrong,
put it. That's
it's
a hell of a
easier said than
percentage.
done, but
Right.
it's a mental trick that I try to play on myself that like if something I write gets rejected, I say, okay, well, that's not a surprise because my tribe is so small. Even my ultimate pie in the sky tribe of a million people is a drop in the bucket of the world's population. So it shouldn't be surprising that I have to deal with that type of negative response the way I do, right? So I try to use that as a mental tactic to protect myself from myself.
Now, in terms of your writing style, do you tend to do you plan to kind of stick along a certain kind of genre type deal, or do you plan on it just comes to what comes to mind, right? Like, or is there a point in time where you might even write a series, out there? I mean,
Yeah, I think for now, if I want to, it's a commercial world, right? So we got to you don't want to confuse people. If you write a
sure,
fiction book and then this
that's
book,
right.
who is he? What is he doing? Like, so I
You
think I'm
got to
gonna
kind of get
stick.
on a genre and stay with it, right?
Yeah. So like this book about actualization and like that's kind of like my thing. I think it's what I'm most passionate about. It's where I I think it's where I add the most value.
You're subject matter expert, more or less, like in that era.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived a life really thinking about these things and trying these things out, and I like to think I've gotten to a point where I can express it in a way that is helpful to people. So I think I'm going to stick with this, and then if I have the luxury of, when I have the luxury of success, I would love to experiment with different, whether it be fiction or this or that, but that would be a luxury. Right now, I got to focus on, finding my tribe.
You're gonna do it, man. You're gonna
Thanks.
do it. I definitely I feel it. I feel
Thanks,
it,
man.
and I think you want it bad enough. And usually, if there's something we want bad enough, good old America, God bless, we can pretty much go achieve what we want to.
Well said.
It's just got to be. You just got to drive, man. You just got to keep driving and never give up on yourself. There's gonna be those discouraging days, because there's been times where I've even contemplating on not doing another show, or something. But
Really?
you know, and then what's weird is as soon as my mind goes to that kind of that weird thought, it's like the universe or God just is like, boom, here's something for you. Wait a second. Oh gosh, there's still people paying attention. All right, man. All right. Just be something kind of really weird that gives me a sign of keep going, stay the course. You're in it. There's going to be days where the water's nice and calm and everything's just peachy, and then there's going to be days where you're in a storm,
Right.
and you're taking on water, and you got to get the buckets and start pouring it out, and not become a submarine. No pun intended.
That's right. That's what we say. Every boat, every ship is a submarine once.
That's true. Facts, man. Well, Matt, is there anything else, man, that we didn't really cover here on the show that you want to kind of talk about before we head out of here? And
No, I think the only thing I'd kind of like to highlight is if people kind of dig my vibe and are interested in plugging into the types of things that I write. I would just encourage you to come on over to Substack. You can either find me by my last name or search for Beyond Platitudes, and
nice.
You enter your email. It's free to do it. I mean, there's a paid membership as well, but I won't get into that. But it's you just put your email in there, and what I write gets sent to your inbox almost every day. I'd say every other day.
Nice. Yep. And right now I'm kind of just showing you guys on Amazon. You guys can go get yourself a copy of his books. Make sure you guys go show him some love and support. Is there any other places that anybody else can find you, or
I have some interesting videos over at YouTube. It's
okay.
YouTube.com, and then it's at MJ DiGeronimo. And that's kind of they're somewhat patriotic. I've done a series of videos about like we need to be better about talking to each other and listening to each other, and and how America was always formed with people who disagreed with each other, but who learned that the way ahead is not division. We have to, at some point, we got to figure out, especially today, right? Like, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. You got 78 million people who disagree with you adamantly, and they're not going away. So, I'm more concerned about 4-8 years down the road than I am today, because history tells us that when people stop talking, that's when bad things happen. So I have some videos on YouTube that kind of address that. And that's at MJ DiGeronimo.
You bring up some good points, though. I mean, I feel like anymore as I've gotten older, I think I've realized a lot. Politics, religion, race, red, blue, whatever. A lot of these things are put in place for us to hate each other. It's called divisive measures,
100%.
and it is put there for you and I to go have a disagreement with each other, than to hate each other after that disagreement.
Right.
We've reached a weird point in our world now where we can't even talk about politics without hating each other. We can't even talk about religion about hating each other. So a lot of people try to stay off of these kind of courses, but I think the more that we ignore that kind of stuff and we don't start pointing it out, we're going to end up in a big problem. So, I mean, we do need people out there to kind of point these things out. Hey, man, we don't have to be so divisive and hate each other, over red
Yeah,
and
and
blue.
I think we could probably do a whole nother episode on this, but
Sure.
it's my observation that most political arguments are not about the thing that we're talking about. Meaning, it's usually like someone's identity is tagged to the underlying issue somehow,
Yep. Yep.
and they're actually just
Well
defending
put.
their ego and they're defending their identity. And we think we're arguing about Doge or healthcare, and we're not. We're not. It's two people trying to protect what they've attached their identity to.
You said that pretty damn well. Couldn't agree with you more. But Matt, man, what an honor it was to have you on and hear about all your experiences and what you got going on now. Let's keep in touch, man.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're gonna have some more books out there. Let's get you back on when you got
cool.
some more books to talk about, and let's keep in touch, you and I.
Absolutely,
Feel
man.
free to join my group every day is a Saturday.
I will.
USMC veteran on Facebook and all that stuff. And dude, don't feel shy to plug your book on there and stuff like that. That's what it's there for. I really want everybody to kind of share their experiences. I've had people buy books on there, coffee, a lot of trading. It's just, that's kind of what it's there for, is for us all to kind of help each other out.
All right. Yeah, I'll come join you there.
All right, brother. Well, once again, thank you so much. And if you want to just hold tight, I'll let you know when your show's going to drop and all that stuff. So I'll hold tight back there and enjoy the crayons.
All right, Brian. Take it easy.
All right, man. Thank you. All right, friends and family. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for another great show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And don't forget, if you guys have a YouTube channel, go over there and check us out on YouTube. Oh, I just made myself disappear. But anyways, right there below is where you can subscribe. It's at EDAS/USMC. That's just dash USMC veteran. And give us a subscribe over there so you guys can check out these great stories and what we got going on. I hope you guys are having an amazing day out there. You know how we like to say it on the show. Don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, we'll see you guys.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.